our public forests, never turning back, never turning back. We're gonna protect our Mother Earth, protect our Mother Earth, protect our Mother Earth, never turning back, never turning back. Keep on moving forward, never turning back, never turning back.
We want to stop this project. We want to halt. We want to stop all logging on our public lands in Vermont. There's only 3 to 4% of Vermont is public land, publicly owned. Why can't we stop logging in those places, in our public spaces, and allow it to become old growth? We're behind the curve with the rest of Indocina or New England, and that's not a good legacy for Vermont. The Beneke peoples, we have sacred sites throughout these mountains, all along the Saskatchewan, the Green Mountains, and we know this. We have cairns and burial sites and homesteads that go back thousands of years throughout these mountains. We were everywhere here, and our sites are still there, and our old ones and those of us alive today are working hard to protect those sites. A lot of private landowners have these on their lands, and they're protecting them for us as well. And we really thank everyone for doing that to protect our homeland. We stayed here in Vermont and did not run off to Canada or anywhere else in order to protect our homeland, in order to stay here where we belong and to protect our sacred sites and to work with the old ones, the ancient ones that are still here and doing this. So we do this together. We can't tell private landowners what to do, but we ask them to join us in returning Vermont back to a safer place. I call it 1491, and where the beavers and all of the animals and the two-leggeds all work together to protect this web of life. We had beaver dams everywhere and wetlands, so there wasn't a flooding issue like what we have today because of channelization of the rivers and taking down of the beavers. And so part of this is allowing our forests to repair and become old growth again, and allowing human beings to enjoy these spaces, not keep people out, but to allow Mother Earth to thrive, because when she thrives, we thrive. And so I'll just end it that way. This is for the protection of our mother. This is for the protection of our peoples, for the protection of all the creatures that our relatives that thrive in these forests. We want to have corridors where they can migrate. We migrate, they migrate. We all have that same right. And so that's where we need to be. We know that there are bad things coming, but if we protect our mother, she will protect us. That's what Creator says. And so this is primarily for the sake of future generations. We want them to have the same future as the life that we had. And I have grandchildren. I want them to thrive, and I want them to enjoy our mother and to have a good life. And so it's all connected, and stopping the logging on our public lands is the least that we can do to walk toward this good future.
Partly why we're not getting more songs because we have no shelter.
back to it later. Yep. Yep. We'll get the van and we'll go back to the car and then bring the car back.
We know beyond a shred of a doubt that these old and mature forests sequester and store more carbon. They do better at protecting those downstream from droughts and floods. They provide essential refugia for some of Vermont's most imperiled species. We know this for a fact, and we know that 91% of the almost 11,000 acres they want to log at Telephone Gap, the Forest Service itself classified as old or mature forests. That's outrageous that they want to cut these incredibly special places. And then, but I guess I can't stop just feeling like, wow, this is so clear and refreshing, because I also feel, a maddening level of frustration. The level of doublespeak around this project, when I step back and think about it, is kind of mind-boggling. Like the whole narrative that if a forest is mature, it needs to be cut so we can extract the maximum economic value from it. Shame. The Forest Service and some of their allies, I think in the last year, we're seeing a new kind of narrative develop that even the most old and mature forests need to be perpetually managed to reach some desired future condition that somehow the forest can't get to on their own, but maybe a few experts through some opaque process know better than the forest. And we're dealing with this kind of like unreality where we need more successional and young forest habitat, even though we know for a fact Vermont already has, compared to the natural state in which our forests and all of our more than human kin evolved, has way more open land and edge habitat and young forest than it naturally ever had. And I'll say just, it's immensely frustrating to think of the Forest Service and their allies denying the fact that they plan to cut old growth, even though the Forest Service themselves inventoried 691 acres that they're planning to cut in this process, and then they're going to turn around and deny that. We're dealing with a project that wants to cut 1,800 acres in the Pittenden roadless area, which the Pittenden, for context, roadless areas are the precursor to wilderness. The Pittenden roadless area is one of the largest unprotected wild places in the state. It's larger than all but 3 of our official protected wildernesses in the state. It's a priceless treasure. It's just here north between Route 4 and 73. And they're planning to cut over 10% of that, put in a couple miles of roads, and claiming that this won't change the character of our wilderness. That's of our roadless area.
No.
That's, I'm trying to think of a good analogy for that. I don't know if that's like coming into your garden and building a road and cutting down the plants, or maybe into, part of your home and like breaking some of the fixtures and the windows and saying, oh, it's okay because this road is temporary and we're going to fix everything and who knows how long. It is truly, I hope you all can share in a little bit of that outrage that I'm feeling, and I hope you will all continue to raise your voices. Right now we have this objection period, and maybe there'll be more that has to be done after that. But thank you so much.
I'm Telos, Whitfield. I've served Unitarian Universalist congregations in New Hampshire and Vermont, and one of our basic tenets of our faith is that we are all an interdependent web of existence. We're all connected to each other in body and spirit, and to the trees and to the earth. So I wanted to, I draw a lot of inspiration from poetry. I'm sure many of you do. I wanted to share this poem by Wendell Berry, who's an incredible environmentalist, has been working tirelessly his whole life, and then farming. And so this is Woods by Wendell Berry. I part the out-thrusting branches and come in beneath the blessed and the blessing trees. Though I am silent, there is singing around me. Though I am dark, there is vision around me. Though I'm heavy, there is flight around me. I have been, I'm a tree hugger by birth, and I had the honor to be out in California and to be in Muir Woods, a very small protected area of old growth forest, and stand beneath these incredible beings, ancient beings, and have been here in Vermont and found an occasional ancient tree in our woods. And when I first learned about this project, I immediately said, well, we can do this. We have to stop this project. It doesn't even make any sense at all. 3%, New York State, no cutting in their state and public lands at all. State and federal, no. New York State, right here. So, yeah. So it's just time to use our voices and our strength and our passion and to feel that connection with the earth and with each other, and to know that it's not about the number of people that are here today, but it's about the energy and the commitment we put to it, and using our voices, not being afraid to use our voices. This is the period that he was just talking about, where we can call and we can speak and we can sign petitions. And if it comes to it, we will go and camp out right here and not allow this to happen, because we cannot allow this to happen. I mean, the short-sightedness of it, the cost is so great for us as people, for our earth, for climate. It's just, we really need to find our own strength and know that people before us and after us have done this with fewer people, with less strength, so we can do this. So I ask that we take a moment, and if you have a hand, grab the hand next to you.
Or the tree.
Or a tree. Yes, exactly. And let's just take a moment in silence. Deep spirit of love, life that runs through all of us, through our land, through the earth, the air, the water. We honor the oldest beings among us. We feel their strength in the roots beneath us. May we feel the connection we have within our own bodies to each other through that physical touch and through light down to the ground, up to Father Sky. Feel that and know that we are on a path of light. We have to stop this project. We have to preserve this legacy. We have to preserve this land. We have to preserve these incredible ancient beings. Blessings.
Hey, hey, ho, ho, this logging plan has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, this logging plan has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, this logging plan has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, this logging plan has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, this logging plan has got to go.
The Green Mountain National Forest is literally my home. It surrounds my community of East Middlebury and fills me with wonder, hope, and inspiration every time I step outside. I've personally explored the Telephone Gap landscape on foot and by canoe, and I know how special it is within Vermont and our broader region. Public lands like our national forests are essential to a healthier future for all life in the Green Mountain State, from our human communities to the communities of life that grace our beautiful rivers, lakes, and mountains. In the face of floods and extinctions, protecting roadless areas and mature forests like those in the Telephone Gap landscape is a no-brainer. It's a gift to future generations who will look back on us with gratitude and pride. We can and must do better by our national forests. Vermonters know the environment is the foundation of our spiritual, physical, and mental health, and taking care of it is a priority for all of us who call Vermont home. Because of this, the legislature recently codified through Act 59 of 2023 a vision for the state that we have an ecologically intact and functioning landscape that supports both natural and human community resilience in the face of a changing climate and biodiversity loss. Large roadless areas like Telephone Gap with intact old forests are rare in a state where the majority of forest land is privately held and required to have a timber management plan due to current use policies. It is these areas of core mature forest that are least represented in our landscape and therefore most necessary to support biodiversity and climate mitigation. Today, I respectfully call on our congressional delegation to do everything in their power to stop the Telephone Gap project. And I call on conservation leaders across the state to work together to conserve priority core forests as wilderness before it's too late. It is my hope that we can start making decisions today that reverse the damage done by climate change and habitat loss. We know the conservation of old wild forests is key to reversing both.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Tom. You're a Vermont person?
I'm Justin Lindholm. I work for Vermonters for Clean Environment, which has helped sponsoring this. And we have been spearheaders of trying to save some of our rarest environment in this state for many, many years now. And sometimes we've had to start off all alone with nobody backing us up. We've been way up on top of some of the most beautiful mountains trying to save some of these places in our efforts. And we have seen some wicked destruction, especially the rarest of all of our ecology, which is montane forest. And we've also tried to save many other types of ecology. And one of our also rare ecological sites are these old growth forest sites. So we're very interested in saving those also. Now with VCE, we have seen some destruction out there where we have seen invasive species come into these areas that have been cleared out. And it happens amazingly every time. When you clear out high mountain areas, pretty soon you have invasive species. Vermont, our mountains, we're not called the Green Mountain State because it was just a nice sounding thing. They don't call us the Green Valley State. We're the Green Mountain State. That's the heart of our state, our mountains. And it's important to save what is up high, especially. The Forest Service National Forest in Vermont was created because of horrible logging practices, 1932. You can look that up and you will see that's what created the National Forest in Vermont, was horrible logging practices. Looks like we're trying to repeat ourselves a little here. Early successional. I'm a hunter and I do a lot of chainsaw work. But what we've got for this early successional idea that the Federal Forest Service wants to do is only temporary. My relatives and I have worked all our lives keeping up early successional down near where their camp is, and it does draw in wildlife, but you have to keep it up and do it down low, not up high where the National Forest people want to do it, which will introduce predators. That's where the predators live. They will be introduced to the deer and the fawns and whatever. They'll just be able to kill them easier up there, and then it disappears after a few years and imbalances get going again. So we don't want to have this temporary early successional, which they seem to think is so important. We want to leave the old growth alone. There's a lot of private land in this area where we have the Telephone Gap project, and my relatives have 400 acres in the middle of this stuff. Proctor Forest, I've been all over these. We all log in those areas quite a bit. So there's plenty of logging going on in the private lands, which look like about 50% of this project area. So that's where the logging should continue if they want to do it. and leave a lot of that national forest alone. And
All of it.
when man sees nature, he instinctively wants to harness and tame it for his own purposes on the pretext of improving nature. Man doesn't seem to realize that it is often best to leave nature alone, to improve itself, especially when nature has spent over a century creating old-growth forests.
Wild public lands mean more to me than just about anything else. I don't know where I would be without them. 20 years ago, I worked my first job for the U.S. Forest Service. I was 18 years old and thought, gosh, maybe I'll make a career of work with this federal agency. National forests are my home, just as Amy Sheldon was speaking about how national forests are hers. I went to work for the Forest Service, and it didn't take me long, sadly, to realize that it was not going to be the place I was going to spend my career. And that broke my heart because I care so deeply about these places. It's not to say there aren't amazingly smart, passionate people who care deeply, who work in this building and who work for the Forest Service all across the country. But let's be really clear, the system is broken. The system is broken. What we are seeing with the Telephone Gap logging project is the system in action. And no matter how creative our individual Forest Service staff people might want to be, they are stuck. They're stuck in a system that is decades and decades old. They're stuck with a forest plan that's 2 decades old, a forest plan that doesn't even deal with climate change, doesn't even mention it. That is what is guiding our projects like the Telephone Gap project. We're stuck in the Stone Age as we look at our landscape here. The Forest Service knows that the Telephone Gap project is a significant impact on our landscape. To begin with, as Chris was mentioning, it's targeting incredibly rare old-growth forests. How much old growth is in the entire Green Mountain National Forest? The Forest Service's own estimate is that there are 2,000 acres out of a 400,000 acre national forest. That is old growth. 800 of those acres, between 700 and 800 acres, will be cut in this project. This is absolute lunacy. The Forest Service also knows how much carbon is going to come out of this project. 60,000 gas-powered passenger vehicles worth over the span of a year. That's how much carbon is going to come out of this project. That's 12% of the registered gas-powered cars in Vermont. That's how much carbon will come out of this one project. But imagine, the Green Mountain National Forest only provides 1% of the wood harvested in Vermont every single year. That's it. So when you look at the impact of one little project, just one of a half dozen large projects currently already going on in the Green Mountain National Forest, multiply those projects over and over and over, and you start to get a sense of the impact of logging on our landscape, on our climate. It's unacceptable. It's not what we need from our public forests today. Like was said earlier, there's a lot of doublespeak going on. There's a lot of hidden truths here. Just 3 months ago, an endangered Canada lynx walked right through this parking lot. How do we know? Through a records request, we obtained the footage from a security camera on that building that was circulated between Forest Service staff showing this lynx walking through the Forest Service parking lot. 2 months later, on November 17th, the Forest Service put out their biological assessment for the Telephone Gap project. What did that say? It said, there are no lynx in the Telephone Gap project landscape. Not only that, it said, we do not foresee any lynx in the Telephone Gap project landscape anytime soon. This is almost verbatim from the biological assessment. How can this be? Well, for too long now, there has been no accountability for our public land managers here in New England, and we've seen laws violated left and right on our state forests, on our national forests. And it's because of your advocacy. A record number of public comments were submitted on the Telephone Gap project, more than any other project in the history of the Green Mountain National Forest. That is why this project has been delayed and delayed and delayed. We're over 3 years now into this public process, much longer than was anticipated. The fact that we know how much carbon will come out of this project, that has never been done on any Forest Service logging project ever before. This is the very first project nationwide where they've done that calculation. Now, but here's the thing. It's one thing to have the information. It's another thing to make the right choice with that information. It's another thing to understand that, yes, this is a significant project, that it should get more scrutiny, that it should be canceled, that it's not what we need, but that's not where we are. We have the information, but we haven't gotten to the point of making wise decisions. And for an agency that is built on the motto of wise use, we ain't at wise use yet. That's not where we are today. Maybe we'll get there, and together we can keep making that possible.
We will get there.
We will get there. Somebody mentioned earlier the Adirondacks, and it is so painful as a Vermonter to stand on top of our beautiful green mountains and gaze out at this amazing landscape across Lake Champlain. It's as if there's this great philosophical divide where for 130 years, as was mentioned before, those public forests are managed as forever wild. An area equal to half the size of the state of Vermont, 3 million acres, is off limits to timber harvest in New York State. If New York can do it, we can do it right here in Vermont.
We can do it.
So the flag is at half staff, as I'm sure you all noticed, because a very important American passed away this week. And President Jimmy Carter is known for many things, but one of the things that he should be known for more than just putting solar, I shouldn't say just, but more than putting solar panels on the roof of the White House, is his legacy in public land protection. While Jimmy Carter was in office, he signed into law legislation that tripled the National Wilderness Preservation System acreage, and he wrote this beautiful quote: "I've never been happier, more exhilarated, at peace, rested, inspired, and aware of the grandeur of the universe and the greatness of God than when I find myself in a natural setting, not much changed from the way he made it." Imagine a president saying those words today. I'm confident that it will happen again, but today we can honor that legacy best by doing the right thing for this Telephone Gap landscape and for the Green Mountain National Forest. And together, let's make sure that in 2025, we live up to that legacy from President Carter.
Awesome. You can take this one off. I'll go get that. Okay.
Okay, that's perfect. Can you do me a favor? Yeah.